Well, the first question you may ask is, what is sgraffito? Sgraffito, like they pronounce it in Italy, simply means scratching in Italian. It is traditionally a pottery technique used in Italy that has also been adapted into painting, where the artist scratches into a surface to create texture or reveal a layer underneath. So when you apply paint to the surface and then scratch it away, you can create amazing textures. And if you've layered a color underneath, like I did in this example, that color will peek through beautifully when you scratch off the top layer. But today, I'm taking that idea into the gel plate. Before I begin though, I want to warn you. I made a lot of mistakes figuring this out. So let me just show you what I did in my first attempt. First, I applied some blue paint on the gel plate with my brayer. I'm using Amsterdam heavy body acrylic paint, but any brand will work. And in this case, a 5x7-inch plate. I let the paint fully dry and then I start scratching the paint off the plate. You can use different tools for this technique like I'm doing right here. These are embossing styluses I bought on Amazon, but you can also use the back of your paintbrush or any non-sharp tool as you don't want to rip or damage the gel plate. I first saw Elizabeth St. Hilaire do this technique on one of her videos, and of course I wanted to try it for myself. But I like experimenting on techniques on my own first, so I can make my own mistakes and then help you avoid them. You can make any design you want, and I'm just having fun with this. But as you may have noticed, I'm not having the easiest time scratching it off, as the paint is too dry and it's very hard to remove. I sometimes go over it a few times, and even then it doesn't fully remove the paint. This is one of the first issues I realized can be corrected in another attempt, which would mean I should not let the paint fully dry, and you will see that soon. However, I always persevere and continue on. Good thing this is a small gel plate, so I don't have a lot of surface to cover. But you can do this with any size gel plate. I'm listing all the products below in the description area of this video, just in case you don't have some of them. Once I'm finished scratching the design, I take yellow paint and roll it over the gel plate using my brayer. I specifically choose a bright color so there will be a lot of contrast between the darker one. I place my paper over the design and let it fully dry for a few minutes. This is very important to do when you have a dry layer underneath because you want the paint to fully lift itself up from the gel plate. I do have to say I'm pleasantly surprised with the results, even though it was harder to create. But of course, I need to try it with wet paint. However, before I get into the next attempt, I'm excited to share with you an amazing platform called Skillshare that's perfect for crafters, creative professionals, and everyone in between. It's packed with classes on a huge variety of topics and skills. Not just artistic ones. You can explore marketing, photography, mixed media, or dive into more gel printing techniques. Whether you want to learn something completely new or take your existing skills to the next level, Skillshare has something for you. Personally, one of the areas I've been working on is expanding my mark making techniques. I realize I often use the same mark makings like lines or dots, but while I was browsing on Skillshare, I saw a fantastic class called Master Mark Making Like Klimt, and it completely transformed my approach, helping me create marks in fresh, exciting ways. You'll also find amazing lessons on gel printing, including how to use a jelly plate printing for collage painting. And here's the best part. The first 500 people who use my link in the description or scan the QR code will get a 1-month free trial for Skillshare. So grab the code, jump in, and start exploring all these new exciting classes. Now let's get back to the second attempt. I brayer permanent red-purple paint over the same gel plate. This time though, I don't wait for it to dry. Instead, I start using my styluses to create a new design. I use different size tips to make marks and scratch off the paint. Some styluses work better than others, and I noticed that as the paint dries, it becomes a little bit harder to scratch off. So it's important to work rather quickly. Now in this attempt, I make 2 minor mistakes. After the pink paint dries, I use gold color on the background. However, the gold is semi-transparent, so you will soon see how it doesn't give such a high contrast. I also realized that my paper has a wet mark from something it had touched on my desk, but I don't think much of it. Big mistake, as once I lift the print, the wet area did not allow the paint to lift off the plate. The funny thing is that although I've made a lot of gel printing mistakes over the years, as you will see in the video that I link at the end, I've never put a slightly wet paper on my gel plate. So for these two reasons, I'm going to attempt it one more time, but this time with an even more amazing technique using a stencil. I take my square 6x6 gel plate and place my own original design stencil called stained glass on the plate before I roll pink paint over it. Now you have two options. Both ways have their pros and cons. You can use your styluses to scratch off the designs through the stencil openings, or you can remove the stencil and create the same marks without it. If you keep the stencil on, your lines might stop at the stencil's edge. But if you take it off, you might go outside your boundaries. But honestly, I'm not after perfection. I love the distressed handmade look, especially in gel printing. For me, it's all about having fun, experimenting, and seeing what happens. Since the paint is still a bit wet, I make a small mistake when adding the next layer. I thought I waited long enough for it to dry, but when I apply my contrasting color, the dark purple ends up blending with the pink underneath. This mutes the contrast I was hoping for when I remove the paper. I still love how it turns out, but looking back, I wish I'd chosen a brighter color like the yellow I used originally. So of course I have to try it one more time. And honestly, this turned out to be my favorite design. I'm using my square gel plate again along with my Helix flower stencil. I place the stencil on top and apply purple paint through it. Then with my stylus, I start creating patterns. I love making dots all around the edges by just pressing the stylus on my gel plate. It's so much fun. But my favorite part is outlining the petals inside the helix with my stylus, turning them into these beautiful leaf-like shapes. I also, of course, use my lines that I usually use just to create more patterns. Once the design is complete, I know it needs a contrasting color. I reach for the gold, forgetting how transparent it is, so I quickly grab a bright yellow shade called Permanent Lemon Yellow and apply it on top. This time, the design comes out beautifully, and that's why I like showing you my process, mistakes and all. And if you want to learn more about gel printing and how to avoid certain mistakes, watch this video right here for more insightful tips.